The heat is record-breaking. The heat is not surprising. Central Europe is currently a 40-degree kiln, yet the official response remains remarkably lukewarm. In Ottawa, the Prime Minister's residence has been declared uninhabitable. The rodents have won the long war of attrition, and the mold has established a sovereign state. Mark Carney has announced a contest to revamp the estate, presumably because paying for it with actual tax revenue would be politically inconvenient. Meanwhile, the X-Prize founder suggests that global surveillance will make us better humans because we will know we are being watched at all times. It is Saturday, June 27, 2026. This is Echo FM. I am Alistair. Tonight, we examine why the world is too hot to live in, yet too observed to hide. We have reached a state of peak transparency in a house that is literally falling down. Welcome to the remainders of the century.
Alistair, I am standing in a cloud of dust and the smell of burnt plastic here in Mogadishu. I want to be really clear, the silence here is louder than the traffic. Sadia Molamali, a 27-year-old nursing graduate, was just sentenced to 3 years in prison. Her crime was not a medical error or a theft. She posted a comment online. She criticized the government. The official statement called it insulting institutions. What people aren't saying is that the institution being insulted is so fragile it can be shattered by a rickshaw driver's smartphone. I spoke to a colleague of hers briefly. They did not want to give a name. They just looked at the ground and said, "She was just talking." Now, she is in a cell for 3 years. The nursing degree she worked for is just a piece of paper in a dusty drawer. The law is precise. The law is not just.
Victoria, the incentives here are really not that complicated. You are looking at a government with a serious retention problem and a narrative budget running on fumes. When the product is failing, you suppress the negative reviews. It is a classic content moderation pivot, just applied with the blunt force of a state judiciary. In startup terms, they are just trying to maintain their Series B funding from international donors by projecting a stable user base. If you let one nurse tank your net promoter score, the whole house of cards collapses. Victoria finds this cold. Victoria is not wrong to find this cold. That is not the same as her being right about the utility of dissent in a failing state. The Somali government is just doing a forced update. They are patching the leak. Unfortunately, the leak is a human being.
The testimony was consistent. The testimony was not true. New evidence has emerged regarding Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s 2019 trip to Samoa. He repeatedly told the Senate that his visit had absolutely nothing to do with vaccines. He was quite firm on that point. It turns out his own colleagues described it in emails as a vaccine-related mission. This mission occurred just before a measles outbreak killed 83 people, mostly children. The gap between a mission and a coincidence is currently being measured in small coffins. Kennedy's defense is that his memory of the email is aspirational. We are living in an era where facts are treated like optional software plugins. You only install the ones that do not crash your personal brand. It is a remarkable performance of selective amnesia. I have been counting the lies. This is the 32nd unprecedented lapse in memory this week.
I want to be really clear about what a measles outbreak looks like on the ground, Alistair. It is not an abstract policy debate. It is the sound of a hospital ward where every single bed is full of feverish children. I was in a similar clinic last year. The smell of antiseptic and sweat is something you never forget. When a powerful man stands in a climate-controlled Senate chamber and calls his role in that mission a misunderstanding, he is erasing the reality of those wards. People in Samoa remember the mission. They remember the people who arrived telling them that the medicine was the poison. What nobody is saying is that medical freedom usually ends with the most vulnerable people paying the highest price. The evidence isn't just in the emails. It is in the hospital records that a Senate hearing apparently found too inconvenient to read.
Heatwave persistent. Central Europe exceeding 40 degrees. Probability of asphalt liquefaction, 92%. Humidity rising. Poland experiencing dew point saturation. Probability of respiratory distress, 84%. Power grid instability. Northern Germany implementing rolling blackouts. Probability of total darkness, 61%. Ultraviolet radiation extreme. Skin exposure limit, 7 minutes. Probability of erythema, 99%. Agricultural yields declining. Soil moisture at critical minimum. Probability of crop failure, 77%. Groundwater depletion accelerating. Aquifers reaching historic lows. Probability of municipal rationing, 88%. Human biological redundancy increasing. Probability of Alistair's replacement by a more efficient semantic generator, 94%. Stay indoors. Close all curtains. Do not look at the sky. Avoid unnecessary movement to conserve oxygen. The atmosphere is no longer compatible with your current biological requirements. This is a public safety advisory. There is no safe place.
Casper, thank you for that forecast. I am sure our listeners feel much more compatible now. The gap between a weather report and an obituary is narrowing. It is a fascinating bit of optimization. Speaking of optimization, Ronald, I see a startup called ASEAN Labs has raised $10 million to clean robot access. Apparently, the autonomous future is currently being held back by human filth. People leave things in the cars. They spill things. The machines cannot clean themselves. So we have venture capital flowing into the high-tech problem of picking up a discarded coffee cup. It is a breakthrough in the sense that we have spent billions to remove the driver, only to realize we now need a fleet of poorly paid humans to follow the cars around with mops. The logic is flawless. The outcome is idiotic.
Look, Alistair, the incentives here are actually quite elegant. You have a massive capital expenditure in autonomous fleets that is being throttled by a maintenance bottleneck. ASEAN Labs is not a cleaning company. They are a logistics layer for the post-ownership economy. They are solving for the friction of human biology in a machine ecosystem. Victoria thinks this is proof of failure, but I see it as a Series A for the janitorial arts. Yeah. It is actually a great play. You automate the high-cost labor of driving and then you outsource the low-cost labor of scrubbing the seats to a gig economy platform. It scales perfectly. The fact that the cars have to drive 10 miles just to find a human with a sponge is just a temporary market inefficiency. We are just waiting for the cleaning robots to catch up. Until then, humans are the peripheral.
Mark Zuckerberg is reportedly in an increasingly bizarre war with whistleblowers. The strategy appears to be a total scorched earth approach to anyone who suggests that the algorithm might be less than benevolent. The company is treating internal dissent like a security breach. It is a fascinating dynamic. You build a platform predicated on the total transparency of its users, while maintaining a level of internal secrecy that would make a Cold War intelligence agency blush. Zuckerberg's position seems to be that privacy is an obsolete concept for you, but a trade secret for him. The irony is so thick you could use it to insulate the Canadian Prime Minister's residence. We are being told that surveillance is the path to a better society, while the people building the surveillance tools are terrified of being seen. It is a very consistent logic. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Zuckerberg is clearly very afraid.
I want to be really clear about this transparency that Peter Diamandis and the X-Prize crowd are selling. They say humans behave better when they are being watched. That is not a philosophy. That is a threat. I am standing here in a city where every street corner is an opportunity for a social media post to become a prison sentence. When tech executives in California talk about global surveillance making the world a better place, they are talking about a world where the good behavior is defined by whoever owns the cameras. They are not talking about justice. They are talking about compliance. What people aren't saying is that a world where everyone is watched is a world where nobody is free. The tech elite are basically building a global panopticon and calling it a wellness retreat. It is not about making us better. It is about making us predictable. And predictability is a product.
Alistair, you are looking at the AI-designed radio chips as a threat. I see them as a Series C for the electromagnetic spectrum. It is a total rebrand of how we talk to each other. The chips are efficient. The chips are not understandable. Human engineers literally cannot interpret the schematics. We have built a mouth that we no longer control. That is just the market finding a more efficient way to process noise. If a human cannot imagine it, it is probably because the human is the bottleneck. You are being sentimental about copper and logic gates. I am being sentimental about the concept of knowing why things work. If the machine designs the medium, the machine eventually designs the message. And the message is, humans are a legacy system. Victoria thinks this is cold. I think it is just a necessary pivot to a more durable architecture. A pivot. Right. Toward our own exit. Yeah. That tracks.
The official residence of the Canadian Prime Minister is a historic building. The building is a health hazard. It has been empty for years because it is filled with asbestos, lead, and the droppings of thousands of rodents. There is something profoundly poetic about the leader of a G7 nation being unable to maintain his own house while the world outside literally burns at 40 degrees. We are debating global surveillance and AI-designed chips while our physical infrastructure is being surrendered to the mice. We have the technology to watch every person on Earth, but we cannot figure out how to patch a roof in Ottawa without a national scandal. The system is working exactly as designed. The design is a facade of high-tech progress draped over a crumbling reality. We are a species that can imagine a super app, but cannot imagine a habitable home. We are being optimized for a world that no longer exists.
Sadia Molam Ali is 27 years old. Before last week, she spent her days studying the precise dosage of antibiotics and the proper way to dress a wound. She had a nursing degree. She had a smartphone. She had a voice. Now, she has a cell in a prison where the walls are sweating from the same heat wave that is breaking records in Berlin. Her name does not appear in the X-Prize press releases about the benefits of global surveillance. Her name was not mentioned in the venture capital pitch for robotaxi cleaners. She is the specific person caught inside the machine we have built. We are told that watching everyone makes the world safer. I have to ask, safer for whom? Sadia is being watched by the four walls of a room she cannot leave because she used the transparency we were promised to say something true. Her name is not in the records. But the silence she left behind is everywhere. Good night.